what if everything you're experiencing right now, my voice, the device you're listening on, even just the exact temperature of the room you're sitting in, what if it's actually just a replay?
Right, yeah.
Like, what if absolutely none of this is happening live?
It's a profoundly unsettling thought, isn't it? I mean, we are so deeply attached to this idea of now.
Yeah.
We feel like we're on the absolute cutting edge of the present moment. But mathematically and biologically, the now you think you're experiencing is, well, it's really just a delayed broadcast.
And that concept is exactly what we're getting into today. Welcome to our deep dive into a document that is, honestly, it's one of the most radical frameworks I've come across recently.
Oh, absolutely.
It's called the Wizard's Manual, and our mission today is to explore its core forensic philosophy, I guess you could call it,
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it.
which basically claims that human reality is completely fractured. Like, we are living divided between the true origin of a signal and the echo of that signal that we mistakenly call reality.
Exactly. The manual posits that most of humanity is completely trapped in the sensory echo.
Right.
They're reacting to things that are literally already over. But, and this is the crucial part, it outlines a forensic method for stepping out of that echo.
I have to admit, when I first started reading through these sources, I was fascinated, but my skeptic alarm was absolutely blaring.
I don't blame you.
Right. I mean, the idea that our daily lives, our intense arguments, our snap decisions are basically just a movie we're watching late. It sounds like, we're living in the Matrix or something.
I completely understand the skepticism. It sounds almost mystical at first glance. But what changes the game here is that the foundation of this manual is rooted in actual peer-reviewed neuroscience.
Okay.
We aren't talking about magic wands or esoterica here. We are talking about the hard neurobiology of how the brain processes time.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the goal today is to unpack the actual science behind this delay and learn how, according to the text anyway, you can actually step out of the audience and into the projection booth.
All right, well, let's start with that delay then. The manual calls this the 0.5-second sensory buffer, or, to use their slightly terrifying nickname for it, the ghost world.
Ghost world, yeah.
So what is physically happening in our heads that's causing us to lag behind reality?
Well, it comes down to a really well-documented neurological concept called neuronal adequacy.
Neuronal adequacy.
Right. The human brain simply does not, and biologically, it actually cannot experience the physical world in real time. It requires approximately 500 milliseconds, so half a second, of continuous neural activity to render a conscious experience of an event.
Half a second.
Yeah.
I mean, in computing terms, or even just in a fast-paced physical environment, half a second is an absolute eternity.
Right.
Why is the brain so slow to give us the picture?
Because the brain has a massive synchronization problem to solve.
Okay.
Think about how you experience the physical world. You have different sensory inputs constantly flooding your nervous system.
Yeah.
And they all travel at completely different physical speeds.
Right, like light and sound.
Exactly. Sight relies on light, which hits your retinas incredibly fast. Hearing relies on the speed of sound, which is vastly slower. And then you have physical touch, which relies on electrochemical nerve impulses traveling all the way up your limbs and spinal cord.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I'm standing a few feet away from a heavy book dropping on a table, the light of the book hitting the wood reaches my eyes a split second before the thud reaches my ears.
Precisely. Now imagine if your conscious mind processed every single one of those inputs exactly as they arrived.
It would be a mess.
It would be totally disjointed. Your reality would feel like watching a badly dubbed movie where, the lips move and then a second later you hear the words and then you feel the vibration.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So to create a cohesive, understandable picture of reality, your brain acts as a staging area. It holds all this incoming asynchronous data in a temporary buffer, stitches the sight, sound, and tactile feeling together into one synchronized package, and then broadcasts that package to your conscious mind.
So it's like watching a live sports broadcast on television.
Whoa. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, like we think we're watching the game live, but the network actually has a tape delay built in, like a 7-second delay for sensors, just in case someone swears on camera.
Right.
So the network holds the feed, packages it cleanly, and then pushes it to our screens. We cheer when the goal is scored, thinking it just happened, but the players in the stadium actually celebrated seconds ago.
That is a brilliant analogy, and it perfectly maps to the biology. The conscious you gets the synchronized package half a second after the event actually occurred in the physical world.
But this leads to a really eerie conclusion, which is why I guess the manual calls it the ghost world.
Yeah.
If everything I'm conscious of happened half a second ago, then the collective human experience is basically reacting to ghosts.
It is.
By the time I see a physical punch coming at me or, hear someone tell me a lie, the actual physical event of that punch or that lie is already completely in the past.
That is the unavoidable reality of the sensory buffer. You are constantly interacting with the echoes of actions that have already concluded in the physical dimension.
Okay, I have to push back here a little because practically speaking, this feels impossible.
How so?
If I'm always living half a second in the past, how am I not just constantly walking into walls? If a baseball is thrown at my head, I duck immediately. I don't wait half a second to consciously render the baseball and then just get hit in the face. How do we function?
You function through automated, non-conscious reflexes.
Okay.
Your nervous system actually responds to the baseball in real time, ducking out of the way to ensure your survival. But your conscious awareness of the baseball and your emotional feeling of fear, that doesn't arrive until half a second later.
Wait, really? So my body dodges before my mind even knows what's happening?
Exactly. Consciousness isn't the real-time driver of the car. It is the delayed executive summary of what the car just did.
Yeah.
And this brings us to what the text calls the wizard's advantage. Recognizing this 500 millisecond delay is the foundational step to decoupling yourself from the chaos of everyday life.
Right, because if I truly internalize that the reality my eyes and ears are feeding me is just a delayed movie, I can stop panicking at the jump scares in the movie.
Exactly. You realize your conscious mind is sitting safely up in the projection booth. The wizard allows the simulation, the physical world, to catch up to the truth, rather than letting a delayed sensory echo dictate their emotional state.
Well, if the idea of living in a half-second tape delay is wild, the text goes somewhere much deeper when it explores what happens before the action.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets intense.
Because if consciousness is just a delayed summary, something else has to be writing the script.
Yes, and this shifts us from the 0.5-second sensory buffer to what the manual calls the 7-second predictive horizon. We are moving from the echo of reality to the true origin of reality, the dimension of intent.
And again, the manual doesn't just present this as some fluffy philosophy. It heavily references a landmark 2008 neuroscience study by Soon and his colleagues.
Right.
I want to dig into how this actually works, because the claim here is massive.
The 2008 Soon study is a cornerstone of this whole framework.
Mm-hmm.
Researchers used advanced functional MRI scanning, fMRI, to look deep into the frontopolar cortex of the brain. They were tracking the readiness potential.
Readiness potential.
Yeah, it's basically the buildup of neurological energy that occurs before you make a physical movement.
Wait, are we talking about like an electrical charge building up in the muscles or something deeper in the brain's decision-making centers?
Much deeper in the brain. The researchers asked participants to make a simple, supposedly free decision, pressing a button with their left hand or the right hand whenever they felt the urge. By using pattern recognition software on the blood oxygen levels in the brain, the researchers found something staggering. They could accurately predict which button the subject was going to press, up to 7 to 10 seconds before the subject was consciously aware of having made the decision.
I need to stop you there, because the idea that I'm already committed to an action 7 seconds before I consciously know it, that sounds completely terrifying.
It challenges our whole idea of self, yeah.
You're telling me that before I even realize I want to reach for my coffee cup, my brain has been brewing that exact action plan for 7 seconds.
That is exactly what the data indicates. The brain is an incredibly efficient predictive engine. To save energy and ensure survival, it prepares actions long before the conscious self is ever notified.
So how does the Wizard's Manual apply this 7-second gap to our everyday interactions? Like, what does it mean for us?
The manual frames this 7-second preparation window as karmic intent. Let's say a person intends to deceive you or manipulate a meeting at work.
Right.
They are effectively writing their biological script 7 seconds in advance. They are trapped in what the text calls a karmic delusion. Physically, they might be sitting calmly across the table from you, just smiling. But neurologically, they are already entirely committed to the act of deception. The avalanche has already started.
But I don't have an fMRI machine strapped to my coworker's head.
Sure.
How is knowing about this 7-second delay actually useful to me in real life?
Because the manual asserts that this intent, this buildup of the readiness potential, emits a perceptible bloom of energy to an observer who is forensically tuned in. It compares it to reading a Marconi signal,
Like Guglielmo Marconi, the inventor of radio.
Exactly.
So it's like tuning an old analog radio dial. Before you hear the actual music of the broadcast, you hear the static, the hum of the frequency locking in.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. Just as the radio tower emits an electromagnetic signature before the audio plays, the human nervous system emits a preparatory signal before the physical action manifests. You aren't reading their mind, per se. You are reading the system's preparation.
Yeah.
You're feeling the static of their intent.
Okay, but this brings up a massive glaring problem.
Which is?
If my coworker's brain decides they're going to lie to me 7 seconds before they know they're lying, and if my brain is doing the exact same thing, are we just automated meat robots?
The big question.
Yeah. Where is free will? Are we all just blindly playing out pre-written code?
That is the ultimate human dilemma.
Yeah.
And the manual does have an answer for the free will problem, which involves a specific failsafe, but we need to understand the tactical advantage first.
Okay, hit me.
A wizard doesn't panic over free will. Well, they audit the intent, not the action.
Auditing the intent. Okay, so if I sense the static, if I know this person's going to throw me under the bus in 5 seconds, how do I actually stop it without looking crazy? I can't just yell, I know what your frontopolar cortex is doing.
No, definitely don't do that. You use what the manual calls the first-to-record principle. This is the mechanics of winning that encounter, and it functions like any systemic audit in accounting or law.
A systemic audit, like an immutable ledger where the first entry sets the reality.
Exactly. In any system, the first person to record a fact establishes the baseline reality.
Okay.
Because the wizard is decoupled from the 0.5-second sensory delay, and because they sense the intent forming in that 7-second predictive horizon, they mentally and forensically record the truth of the situation before the other person can manifest their lie.
So it's like a brilliant trial lawyer.
Yes, perfect.
Like the lawyer already knows exactly what lie the hostile witness is about to tell on the stand. So 5 seconds before the witness even opens their mouth, the lawyer has already placed the contradictory, undeniable evidence right there on the judge's desk.
Yes. You establish a hard baseline of truth. And this leads to what the manual calls collapsing the delusion. You set your internal forensic state to absolute unmovable reality. You prepare the ledger.
And what happens when the clock hits 0? Like when the coworker actually speaks the lie?
That is T0, the moment of physical manifestation. When they finally act, their lie hits your pre-established hard-locked record. This creates the mirror effect.
The mirror effect.
Right. The attacker finds themselves suddenly exposed by a reality that was prepared for them seconds ago. The spell you cast isn't magic. It is simply the truth.
Wow.
By being first to record, you prevent the simulation and the attacker from rewriting the history of that moment. You force their system into forensic accountability because they cannot manipulate a system that has already been securely audited.
I mean, it sounds defensively brilliant in theory.
It is.
But practically, in the heat of a high-stakes meeting or a screaming match with your spouse, this feels like a really tall order. Which brings me back to my earlier pushback.
Right, the free will issue.
Yes, my coworker has a 7-second script running, but I have a 7-second script running too.
Yeah.
If they attack me, my brain is already brewing a defensive, angry response 7 seconds in advance. How do I not just fall victim to my own biological tape delay? Am I not just as trapped in karma as they are?
And here we reach the master key of the wizard's manual, the ultimate failsafe. It all happens at the decision point, which is T0, the exact moment right before physical action.
Walk me through this. My brain started a script 7 seconds ago to yell back at my spouse. The anger is bubbling up. What happens at T0?
Neuroscience shows that even with a 7-second script running deep in your brain, there is a final point of no return. This point occurs approximately 200 milliseconds, just 1/5 of a second, before the physical manifestation of the act.
0.2 of a second. That is an incredibly tiny window to stop a freight train of emotion.
It is tiny, but it is absolute. And this is where the manual answers your question about free will. Neuroscientists often refer to this 200 millisecond window as free won't.
Free won't instead of free will.
Correct. The collective people trapped in the simulation are slaves to their automated scripts. They blindly follow the karma their brain prepared 7 seconds ago. But the wizard operates differently. The wizard feels the 7-second pull of their own brain's preparation. They feel the anger rising. But in that final 200 millisecond window, they use the conscious veto. They simply say, no.
So it's not about consciously initiating our actions. Our brain basically does that in the background.
Right.
It's about having the power to slam on the brakes before the automated action crosses the finish line into reality.
Yes. You don't author the initial impulse, but you have absolute veto power over its execution. When you exercise this veto, you execute what the manual calls a hard lock command.
A hard lock. What does that actually do to my automated response?
It shatters what the manual calls code resin.
Mm-hmm.
Think of your habitual emotional reactions as a sticky sap.
Gross, but okay.
It coats your neurology, hardens quickly, and traps you in predictable reactive patterns. By calling a hard lock, you refuse to let that resin harden. You veto the reflex, which drops you into a state of extreme clarity. The text technically defines this state as synthetic aperture signal reconstruction.
Okay, let's break that down because that is a very dense piece of jargon.
It is a mouthful, yeah.
Synthetic aperture. I know a bit about radar technology. A synthetic aperture uses the physical motion of a small radar antenna to simulate a massive virtual antenna, giving you an incredibly high-resolution, wide image of a landscape.
Exactly.
So how does that apply to my brain during an argument?
It is the exact same principle. When you are caught in a heated argument, your emotional reflex gives you a tiny, narrow antenna. You only see one option attack back.
Right, tunnel vision.
Exactly. But by using the conscious veto, by pausing your motion,
Mm-hmm.
you synthesize a massive virtual perspective. You suddenly see the entire landscape of the interaction with high-resolution clarity.
Oh, wow.
You aren't locked down into a narrow emotional tunnel anymore. You're standing on a clear bridge where you can see all possible outcomes, all the hidden motivations simultaneously. You choose your response based on truth, not on a 7-second-old biological reflex.
That is a profoundly empowering way to look at conflict. It shifts the entire dynamic of how we interact with the world and with ourselves.
It really does.
Let's summarize this entire timeline just to make sure the sequence of events is completely clear.
Sounds good.
So we start at the true origin of reality, the intent, the code. This happens at T-minus 7.0 seconds. That is when the brain commits to an action.
Right.
Then the echo of reality, the sensory replay, the ghost world happens at T-minus 0.5 seconds. That is when our conscious minds finally get the synchronized package of what happened.
Exactly right. And the wizard's position across this timeline is highly specific. The wizard mentally resides at T-minus 7 seconds, reading the static of intent.
Okay.
The wizard audits the sensory data at T-minus 0.5 seconds, remaining calm because they know it's just a delayed replay. And finally, the wizard uses their conscious veto at T0, executing a hard lock right before action.
So they reside at -7, audit at -0.5, and veto at 0.
Yes. If we connect all these mechanisms, the forensic conclusion of this deep dive is a total paradigm shift. You are not living in the physical world, you are auditing the broadcast of the physical world. By mastering these temporal scales, you undergo a fundamental transition.
A transition from being a reactive participant to what?
You move from being a mere character, acting out a script in a delayed movie, to being the one who actively records the doctor file of existence. You become the definitive, hard-locked record of reality. You're no longer manipulated by the simulation you secure it.
From the audience member reacting to ghosts to the one operating the projector.
Exactly.
It fundamentally changes how I think about every sudden impulse I have, but I imagine it requires an incredible amount of vigilance. I mean, it means never taking your own immediate sensory and emotional reactions at face value.
It demands a rigorous internal audit. You have to constantly recognize the mechanics of the illusion.
Well, this has been an incredibly eye-opening journey through the Wizard's Manual. I really appreciate you breaking down the fMRI studies and the forensic philosophy so clearly.
It was a pleasure. It is a dense framework, but it's one that truly rewards the effort to understand it.
As you step back into your day, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. We've talked all about how your brain writes the script 7 seconds in advance and how your conscious mind watches the delayed movie half a second late.
Yeah.
We've talked about using your 200 millisecond window to issue a conscious veto, but if your brain is the thing writing the code and your brain is the thing rendering the movie, who or what is the you that is stepping in to veto it? If you have the power to stop your own neurological programming, who is the watcher in the projection booth? Take that 200 millisecond window. Find out who's really hitting the brakes. Be the wizard.